Welcome back to the little stay. The sea breeze still carries a hint of salt, and sunlight filters through the grapevines onto the stone path. Today, we welcome a quiet new guest. He arrived in the late afternoon, carrying only an old camera. The weather hadn't turned warm yet. The air still held a bit of that salty chill from the ocean. Sunlight poured through the grapevines above the stone path, casting fractured green shadows, like glass broken carefully and laid back in place. Marco didn't have much luggage, just a worn canvas bag, a tripod strapped to the side, and something about the way he looked around, like the world might surprise him, but he wasn't counting on it. He spoke with a soft Italian accent, the kind that lingered mostly in the vowels. When he smiled, it felt like something he'd practiced less often these days. He checked in quietly, and when I asked for a contact number, he paused for a second too long. Then he said, "Better not. I think I'm supposed to be unreachable for a while." I smiled. That's exactly the kind of guest this place is built for. On the check-in card, under the line that said purpose of stay, he wrote, "Looking for something I haven't named yet." The next morning, I found him outside before breakfast. He was kneeling beside the raised beds, adjusting his tripod, carefully pointing his camera at a cluster of tomato blossoms. Sunlight was just beginning to soften the sky, casting a gentle amber over the garden. The grapevine shadows from yesterday were longer now, stretching like sleepy arms. He didn't notice me watching him from the window. What I noticed was how still he was, like a stone someone placed in the right spot years ago. And it simply stayed, because that's where it belonged. Later, over tea, I asked, "Did you get any good ones this morning?" He shrugged. "Maybe. I've been shooting but not seeing." Then he paused, thought for a moment, and added, "Today I tried to listen with the lens." That was the first time he looked me in the eye when he spoke. It felt like a hinge in the conversation, something opening just a bit. One morning, I asked him gently, "Why don't you use something newer?" He looked down at the old camera in his lap. Its paint chipped at the edges, the leather worn smooth. He ran his fingers along the metal, like he was remembering something private. Then he said quietly, "Because it doesn't rush me. It doesn't beep or autocorrect. It just waits until I decide what matters." Then after a pause, "And sometimes I need to be reminded of that." I began to understand. This wasn't just an old camera. It was a kind of anchor, a way to hold still, in a world that rarely lets you. By the third day, the garden had become his studio. Not in a dramatic way. No large setups or people posing with props. Just him moving slowly, chasing shadows like they owed him something. He spent nearly an hour with a single leaf, waiting for a breeze to pass, so he could catch it completely still. Another time, I saw him lying flat on his stomach, his face inches away from a shallow puddle near the lemon tree. He said he was trying to get the reflection of the sky and a single fallen petal. Low light, water surface, wind, he muttered half to himself. Then he smiled. Not impossible, just moody. One afternoon, he asked me if he could photograph the garden gate. I asked, "What's so interesting about the gate?" He replied, "It's not the gate. It's the way light spills through the cracks and makes the dust in the air visible. I like to photograph things that aren't there." That evening, after dinner, Marco spread out a few prints on the kitchen table. They were still slightly curled at the edges, fresh from the darkroom in town. "These aren't great," he said, "but they're honest." The first was of a woman sitting on the curb outside the bakery, reading a book to her dog, not just sitting cross-legged, with the dog's paw resting gently on her foot. The next showed the shop window of the bookstore. The old man who owned it was seated at a small desk near the door, typing on a machine that looked older than both of us. Click, clack, click, Marco said, mimicking the sound. It's rhythm. It's almost musical. Another photo showed a little girl twirling in front of the post office. Behind her, her father waited patiently, holding 2 envelopes. The girl's dress fanned out like a soft circle, a blur of motion captured mid-spin. I didn't even mean to take that one, Marco said. I was adjusting focus, and her joy slipped in. What surprised me most, though, was the last picture. It was a photo of our kitchen, taken from the hallway, the morning light pouring in sideways, catching the dust in the air above the counter, where I had left a half-peeled orange. I took this yesterday, he said. I think your kitchen is the most honest room I've ever seen. That night, Marco tried something new. He asked if he could stay in the garden after dark. I want to shoot the arbor by moonlight, he said. Maybe get some stars if the clouds hold. I agreed, and left the side light off so he'd have full darkness. From my bedroom window, I watched him, standing still for long moments, then adjusting the tripod, then sitting down, camera resting on his lap. An hour passed. The next morning, he told me he didn't take a single shot. There was too much wind, he said. The camera wouldn't stop shaking. And honestly, I think the light was there. But I wasn't. I poured him some coffee and said, sometimes light doesn't want to be caught. It just wants to visit. He smiled. I think I needed to hear that. On his last full day, Marco spent the early morning in the kitchen, not photographing food, but the corners where light gathered. He was obsessed with a single lemon, resting near the edge of the counter, its yellow skin half glowing in the golden light. Next to it, a jar of mulberry jam from the garden, deep purple, almost black, catching the light in waves. He spent almost 20 minutes adjusting the angle. He moved silently, like the light might leave if he spoke. Then he took just one shot. Afterward, he said, that's the slowest photo I've taken in 10 years. The next morning, the day he left, a soft mist had settled over the garden. The grape leaves were wet and slightly curled. He stood at the gate for a long time, camera packed away. He didn't ask me to pose for a photo, didn't try to capture a goodbye, but he left a small envelope on the table. Inside was a print of the kitchen corner, the lemon, the jam, the morning light. On the back in fine black ink he wrote, "Thank you for letting me pause." Between 2 clicks. Marco. I pinned it to the fridge that morning, next to a grocery list and a fading recipe card. And every now and then, when I open the fridge door, the paper flutters just a little, like it's remembering something. I haven't forgotten either. After he left, the house felt a little quieter. Not emptier, just more still. I found myself lingering by the kitchen window, watching the same light he once tried to catch. It looked no different, but it meant something new. I think now I understand why he never changed his camera. It wasn't fear of the new. It was loyalty, not to the past, but to the rhythm he once knew himself in. We all carry a few things we trust blindly. For Marco, it was the soft click of a shutter that never hurried him. And for me, it's the way quiet people leave behind the loudest kind of presence. That's today's story from The Little Stay. Thank you for listening, and we hope it brought a little calm to your day. A new story begins soon. Come back and see who arrives next.